They vanish into the shadows, they slip through the cracks, and sometimes they were never meant to be caught. I'm AC Roberts, and every week on Wanted, we investigate the killers who got away, both identified and unknown. Some are cold cases frozen in time, while others remain terrifyingly active. We break down the facts, the theories, and the disturbing unanswered questions that keep these cases alive. Who killed Joseph Elwell in a locked room? How did Charles Rogers disappear after the gruesome icebox murders? And could the truth about the Sodder children still be out there? Check out our website, thewantedpodcast.com, to find us on your favorite platform, or follow us on Instagram at The Wanted Podcast for updates and case discussions. Because justice may be blind, but the past is never truly buried.
"20-year-old Jennifer Judd was murdered just 9 days after her wedding."
The case quickly went cold, but then about a decade later, a man confesses.
But now it's been over 30 years and the case is still unsolved.
We're previewing Who Killed Jennifer Judd.
That's on this episode of So Much Crime,
So Little Time.
Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee, and in this episode we'll introduce you to Who Killed Jennifer Judd, a podcast from ID and ARC Media.
If you haven't listened to Who Killed Jennifer Judd, that's okay. This is one of our preview episodes.
We're only going to introduce you to the podcast and cover parts of that very first episode. There will be no spoilers for what's to come.
And we'll put a link to Who Killed Jennifer Judd in our show notes.
And then in our next episode, we'll discuss the whole series. But right now, we just want to decide if this is a crime that's worth your time. So this crime happened on May 11th, 1992. Obviously, there's a lot in this. It's very dark, very serious. Jennifer Judd obviously lost her life. But before we jump into that kind of dark and serious side of May 11th, 1992, we wanted to bring a bit of levity to our conversation and go into the time machine to talk some pop culture with Jeff. Now, warning, Jeff is real excited about this because he was like peak teenager years. Is that what's happening with you at this stage in your life?
This year I was like
12, 13?
12, 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, I was like 3.5. So I don't know. I wasn't as excited, although as I look through the movies, I was like, I know some of these. This is good. Okay.
Can I start with just some table setting trivia news events?
Go on.
Okay.
I've been dying to get into this.
I have trivia for you.
I was 4.5. Sorry.
Okay.
So
you should definitely get these.
We did a really bad maths there.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
At the end of April, beginning of May 1992, there were riots, major riots in Los Angeles following the acquittal of LAPD officers where there was a videotape of them beating someone. Who was that person?
I have no idea.
Rodney King. The Rodney King tape and trial. No?
I mean, I remember the LA riots, and I remember it was because the police did something that they were not supposed to do, but I don't know. What did Rodney... bad question to ask. Oh, I was going to say, what did Rodney King do, but I presume he was beaten because he was black.
Yeah, driving while black. But the unique thing was this was caught on video, which was one of the first times that this happened.
Who had the video? Like, presumably they didn't have like a recorder on the cops.
No, it was a bystander. Weird fact about
like
this.
A video recorder? That's wild, because even that is like wild at the time, no?
People had camcorders and things, like VHS camcorders and things back then.
I know, but they weren't probably walking around with them.
But random thing.
It's LA. Everyone's trying to make a movie.
Well, okay. On that, random thing that was happening on that same street or within very close proximity, James Cameron was filming Terminator 2 with Arnold Schwarzenegger right by this when this was happening.
It.
Yeah, that night that
That's
this was
wild.
happening. Yeah. Okay. May 19th, the debut album by this musical artist came out. It was a country pop album. He would go on to be the father of one of the biggest pop stars in the world. But he had a massive hit.
Billy Ray Cyrus?
That's it. What was his song on that album?
His big hit?
Mm-hmm. He had one giant hit,
I feel like she sang it at one point when they were still friends.
probably. It's real annoying. Hated the song.
I don't know.
Achy Breaky Heart. But yeah, Billy Ray Cyrus.
Oh, God.
Father of Miley Cyrus.
So I have some movies that all came out in May of 1992
Okay. In where? In Ireland?
in America.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to try something different. I have like the synopsis in front of me and I'm going to say random words of the synopsis because you did say you knew the movies that came out around then.
I think
I'm going to
so.
do random words.
Okay.
And we'll see how many random words it takes for you to get it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to start with an easy one because arguably fantastic movie. I feel like you'll know it. Okay. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to count them. Bernard. Henchman.
What was the first word?
Bernard.
You spell
Word.
that?
Bernard. Is that how you would say it?
Yes.
Bernard. Bernard.
Henchman.
Henchman. Attention. Family. Vet.
Is it Beethoven?
Yeah. Good job. I feel like you should have got it when I had to re-say Bernard.
Henchman threw me off. I don't remember that movie.
Oh my God, what?
It's possible I have not seen that movie since 1992.
There's a local vet. The vet uses his henchman to steal the dog.
Wow. Okay.
God, I thought you would have loved that movie. Okay.
I don't think I saw it a second time.
Some of these, like, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to do another one. Definitely going to get this one. You have to beat 5.
Okay.
Motown. Refuge. Mob. Identity.
Wait, Motown, Refuge, Mob,
Identity.
Motown,
Choir.
Sister Act.
Yes.
Oh, is that? Wait. Oh, okay. All right. This is tricky. This is a tricky way to do this.
I mean, you're getting it in 5, which is good. Okay.
All right. Gotta do a fly read.
Go for it.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I want to say the charts for early May 1992, and I'm not just being biased by the fact that I was 12 or 13 years old and super into music, although I'm totally being biased by that. But I think they were great. Some of the songs that I'm not going to do a flat read of, but were in the top of the charts were En Vogue's My Lovin', The Chili Peppers' Under the Bridge, U2.
Oh, I love that song.
It's a great song. U2 One. Weird Al, Smells Like Nirvana, as well as Nirvana, Come As You Are. Okay. But I'm going to do this one that was the number 1 song this week in 1992. This is by, I'm going to give you some clues. This was produced by Jermaine Dupri.
Don't know who that is.
Okay. This duo opened for Michael Jackson on the European leg of his Dangerous tour. Dangerous was also out. That's the time like this was. It is a duo from Atlanta, Georgia, made up of 2 13-year-old boys. And it goes like this.
Are you waiting to see if I figured it out from that one?
I don't think if you didn't figure it out with that, I don't think you're going to get this. But I'm going to read it because this is goofy. Don't try to compare us to another bad little fad. I'm the Mac, and I'm bad. Give you something that you never had. I'll make you bump, hump, wiggle, and shake your rump. Because I'll be kicking the flavor that makes you wanna blank. How high? Real high, because I'm just so fly. A young, lovable...
Jump around. Jump around. No?
It is
the name of the song Jump?
It is Jump, but Jump Around is a different song. Any idea who this is? It gets more fun as I keep going.
Jump it up.
How high, real high, because I'm just so fly. A young, lovable, huggable type of guy. And everything is to the back with a little slack, because inside out, it's wiggida, 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 whack. It's Criss Cross. That's the name of the band. Criss Cross.
Applesauce.
They would wear...
I got Jump.
You did get Jump. They would wear their pants backwards. That was the fashion trend, which became a fashion trend. The stupidest, most impractical fashion trend for a while to wear your pants backwards.
Can imagine.
It was idiotic. Anyway. All right. That was our time machine for today. What a time it was.
While you're listening to our time machine, you know, there's some pauses when Jeff is trying to figure out the movie that I'm trying to get him to guess. Sometimes there's some pauses when I'm like, why are you asking me these questions? I was only 4.5. But in that time, you know what would be really useful? You could go to patreon.com/so much crime, so little time, and you could get more of this because it's so fun. We know you enjoy it. Also there, you could get some early release episodes, bonus content, outtakes, and you'll also be able to support the show. We really appreciate everyone who has joined our Patreon so far, and we look forward to having more of you there. Thank you.
All right, Dee, let's hear a little bit about this podcast. Can you tell us some details?
Ooh, okay, this podcast was released in 2024. It's actually been nominated for a 2025 Ambie as the best true crime podcast of the year. The host is Sarah Cailean. He spelled that out for me. It's definitely an Irish name. Jeff phonetically sounded out the name. Although you do that with most of them, which I often do need them. Anyway, Sarah Cailean's actually a former police officer and sex crimes detective, but she's now an investigator specialising in cold case homicides, disappearances, and cases involving serial predators. This podcast is 8 minutes long. This podcast is 8 episodes long, each around the 45-minute mark. But let's dive in. Jeff, give us a quick synopsis of episode 1, what we hear in the story so far.
Yeah, episode 1 is basically told in 2 parts. The first part, we hear about Jennifer Judd. We jump into that day in 1992 when she was murdered. So she is from Baxter Springs, Kansas, and she had just gotten married about a week after her wedding. On the day of her murder, her husband, Justin, goes off to work. He forgets his lunch. He calls home, asks her to bring it in. She never does. When he goes home, he finds that she's been stabbed to death. So she had been murdered. Then we jump back. We hear a little bit about her life from one of her friends. She was a high school athlete, really loved the area in the small town in Kansas. But then we pivot. And the second half of the episode is we jump to this other murder that happened in 2004 in Alabama after Hurricane Ivan. And we hear from the guy, Paul Birch, who is a cop in Mobile, Alabama. Paul finds out this guy, John Paul Chapman, did it, but turns out he's not actually Chapman. He's a guy named Jeremy Jones, who was wanted for rape and other crimes in Oklahoma. Jones then confesses to a bunch of other crimes, including the murder of Jennifer Judd. And we hear kind of the back and forth of, did he actually do it? Is he just looking for attention? The Kansas Bureau of Investigation is pretty sure that Jones is lying, but we don't know. And that's kind of where things end, with our host, Sarah, basically saying she's going to spend this podcast trying to figure out if he did it. If not, who did. That's what we're here to decide.
Why, Jeff? Why do they think he's lying? What is it in his well, I have one thing that I pulled out that I thought was wrong in the telling of his story, but I can see how it could be like a confused fact. But like, was there anything that we heard from John Paul Chapman or Jeremy Jones? What's his name?
Jeremy Jones.
Was there anything we heard from him that like made you think, oh no, he didn't do it?
What was the thing that you picked up on?
He was saying like, oh, her husband said he'd be home around noon.
Yeah.
But the husband's lunch was 10:30 and his shift finished at 2:30.
Yeah.
So neither of those things made sense because she had to drop the lunch to him at 10:30 or was going to before 10:30. And he was going to be home around or finished his shift at 2:30. So where's noon coming in here? And then there's 2 other things. One of the other things was, one of them was the knife, because apparently it was like a wedding gift.
So there's something with the knife.
How have you, and he's like, oh, I got it from a drawer or a sink or something. It's like, how have you opened this yet? Or maybe that's not something we're supposed to know yet. It was in the summary though. The knife thing like was a bit interesting, but there was 2 knives used and he knew that. And then this whole thing about, oh, I accidentally cut her and then we were trying to like clean it up and then I just decided to stab her. I don't know. It was all very weird. There was one other thing. Oh yeah. He said the husband called and then she was like, you have to leave because he's on the way home. But But that doesn't make any sense because she never made it. And he says, and Chuck said, like, he was like eager to get home to her.
Yeah.
The husband, what's his name?
Justin. Yeah.
He's eager to get home to her. So why would she say he's on the way home? Is that just...
I just presume two things. I presume that she would tell him anything if she really wanted him to get him to go. I also wonder if, I mean, he's telling this story at least 12 years after the murder. Is he going to remember exact times? Is he going to, like, I feel like some of the details are going to get fuzzy 12 years later.
Yeah, you know that whole thing with, like, memory, though? Like, when you've got, like, a pretty significant event?
Sure, but this guy seemingly potentially murdered a lot of people.
Mm. Did you notice that Sarah Cailean said maybe he was in the room for some of the murders?
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Yeah. I'm like, so is she trying to tell us, like, there's another person here?
Maybe. I don't know.
Were you expecting this, like, kind of seemingly random suspect to pop up mid episode 1? Like, I presumed they were going to just, like, zone in on your man Chuck.
Yeah. So Chuck is the friend who shows up at work with Justin, says that he went by their place, and then he goes to work, says let's go to the gym after work. That seemed real dodgy when we first heard it, of like...
Yeah, I found that weird as well. Why did you find it weird? Sorry.
And then... Well, just because so this is Justin's friend. He clearly went by the place, by their home, and then he shows up at his work and he wants him to go out to the gym rather than go home. This is his first day kind of away from his wife after their honeymoon, after getting married. And then when they do go home, when they find her murdered, Justin tells Chuck to call 911. We get this very specific detail that Chuck calls 911 but can't seem to form words. He can't seem to say anything. And so Justin takes the phone and tells the police or the dispatcher to come. Why?
Do you think he was
what's going on with Chuck?
Was he sent there to, like, delay him to get home, but he didn't realize what was going to actually happen?
Maybe. There's some very specific details that I don't know if it's...
There are.
Yeah.
Like, are these red herrings? Are these just details? But, like, what are they for?
I don't know. I don't know. But it stuck out to me when I listened to it the second time, because in the second half of the episode, when we find out about this other murder, the one in 2004 of Lisa Nichols, the one in Alabama after the hurricane, there's first of all, some real good police work that we hear about. As well as some really helpful citizens, like the person who they're looking for.
Gas.
Yeah. So Jeremy Jones was apparently driving around near the site of the murder, asked a stranger for gas for his Jeep, his red Jeep Cherokee. And this neighbor basically gave him some gas for his car, but then remembered that it was a red Jeep Cherokee. He remembered the type of plate it was in the first, like, 2 numbers of the plate, which in the middle of a hurricane, I don't know where in the hurricane this was happening, but very useful, very specific. It helped lead the police to him. And then the fingerprint trick. Did you catch that? That was a fun little trick. So
I enjoyed them.
Paul Birch basically has Jeremy Jones in custody, and he pretends that they have fingerprints on this beer can found at the site of the murder. And that gets basically Jones to admit that he was inside the house, because he had admitted to being at the house with Lisa Nichols, but not inside. But there was a beer can found. That was also a very specific detail, that Lisa Nichols only drank Natty Light. But this was a Bud Light can, which, sure. Are
you judging the Bud Light taste? Or the Natty Light taste?
I hear myself as I'm saying it, but yeah, I am being a little judgy.
I like the way it was, like, upside down in the sink. And they're like,
because she always
put her can there.
Yeah.
But it was wild. And, like, it was like the one call he made when he was arrested and charged was the key to finding out that he wasn't John Paul Chapman, but he was in fact Jeremy Jones, because the call was to his mother. So after they realized he was Jeremy Jones, they were like, okay, well, we have this person that he called. Do you know her? And they're like, oh yeah, she's like, what do they say? A thorn in society's side or something.
Can I ask you?
She has a son who's a fugitive. Yeah.
Can I ask you? So he's from Miami, Oklahoma. And I originally was listening to this the first time while I was on a run, and I was near the end of a run, and I got to admit that I wasn't totally lucid. And I just thought, like,
It's like a healthy run.
Where does Miami, Florida fit into this story about Kansas and Oklahoma? As a person not from America, do you find it annoying that we have these like iconic cities that you associate with one part, like Miami, and then like if there had been like it was San Francisco, Oklahoma, aren't there enough names of towns? Do we have to have a Miami, Oklahoma?
I don't know. There's a lot of towns. Like, how many towns are in the U.S.?
But like Miami's one of those ones. If like, do we need a second Miami? Like if we heard that this crime happened in New York City, Oklahoma, that would be super weird, right?
It would be super weird. I mean, I did have to double take again. I was like, where are we now? Because we jumped from Alabama, Oklahoma, and Kansas. I'm like looking up the map all day long. Here, come here. Mobile, Alabama. Was that where Blind Plea? Is that where?
Yeah, we were in Alabama for Blind Plea. That's right. Yeah.
Was Mobile mentioned in that one?
Yeah, I think it definitely was.
Mobile. Yeah, I think it was as well. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, there was also some funny parts. Like, I enjoyed how they were like, we rang the prison where John Paul Chapman was apparently being like held, and we're like, we have John Paul Chapman. And they were like, no, we've had him here for 10 years. And they were like, we just went and physically checked to make sure he was in the cell. Being like, well, just in case we've missed him in many head counts. I thought that was so funny.
That was funny. But also, so Jones bought Chapman's driver's license and birth certificate
for 50 quid. Is that all it takes?
From Chapman's mom in a bar. And she's like, he isn't going to be needing this for a while. He's in prison. And so that's both funny, but also like, is that happening out in the world now?
I mean, Jeff, if it is, they're surely selling it for a bit more than 50 quid.
What a bargain.
What a bargain.
And the fact that he committed multiple crimes in multiple states, they pulled his fingerprints and no one noticed that those fingerprints didn't match the fingerprints on file for Chapman, as well as, we don't hear about this exactly, but didn't they have Jones' fingerprints in the system? And maybe it was in the 90s and early 2000s and there wasn't a national database of fingerprints, but when did there a national database of fingerprints? And I know fingerprints are a flawed way of identifying people, but one more thing that's a little bit more serious.
Okay.
Jones raped at least 3 women in Oklahoma. These are the women that pressed charges. After the first 2, all he got was probation. And then the third time, he was violating his probation for increasingly violent rapes. That's how it was described.
Can I just ask, because you're going somewhere with this that I'm confused about. We're like, this is 95, episode 95. If you knew nothing before we started doing this podcast, tell me honestly, are you shocked by that? If he was a woman who had attacked a man for trying to sexually assault her, he would have been put in prison after the first one. But don't tell me, like in all, you're not shocked by that. We couldn't be still.
No, you're right.
How about I ask you, what were you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you about Paul and Michelle Birch.
Plot twist.
So Paul,
the non-married couple. So they were both FBI agents, and they went in.
Paul Birch is the sheriff in Mobile, Alabama,
sorry.
And Michelle is the FBI agent who's sent in when Jeremy Jones starts confessing to murders.
So they go in and they're interviewing him, and he just assumes that she is his wife, Birch's wife. And it's like, oh, we just played along because, we were like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then, plot twist, they got married.
And they've been together for 20 years, which means that must have happened like right after this. They met because of this case, and I get that they're both in law enforcement. She's an FBI agent. He's a sheriff. Sure, this is their whole world. But is it kind of bizarre that this is their like meet cute?
Tell us your cute meet story or your meet cute. You're just like, was this serial killer?
There's this guy who was just confessing to rapes and murders all over the country.
On that note, actually, one reason why I think he wasn't, he didn't murder all these women was because he said he was called Redneck Bundy.
Why does that make you think that?
Well, because it feels like he wants to be known as Redneck Bundy.
Yeah. He wants the attention.
Mm.
He wants the notoriety. He wants to be
Mm-hmm.
bigger than he really is, more important than
Mm-hmm.
he really is, which seems
Mm-hmm.
like that's a thing. Yeah, I think that's a good call out.
What is wrong with men? Oh my God. What have they missed out on in life?
I don't have an answer to that.
Like, seriously, though.
Hugs?
I mean,
Hugs.
yeah. I found it really interesting to hear Michelle, the FBI agent, when she's in there with her husband, Sheriff Birch. Paul Birch. I should remember that name.
Paul. Yeah.
So they're interviewing him, and Michelle made this point that I thought was really interesting, how Jeremy Jones had clearly over the years been taught and tried to like internalize and understand that certain things are not acceptable with women around. So things that were not acceptable is if he cursed, he would apologize to her. He'd be like, "Oh, sorry, kind of forgot you were in the room." So that's like built into his mannerisms, is to make sure he apologizes. He's using like correct words and he's not cursing in front of women. But when he was describing violence, any of the violent murders or the rapes that happened, he didn't seem to care that she was there or feel like he needed to apologize. And she was like, it was this really, I don't know, I suppose I never really thought about the learned behavior.
Yeah.
How kind of how strict, and how like I have a checklist and there is no other things that I need to consider. Like I don't need to infer it.
Yeah. So why would that be wrong? Yeah, I think it was an interesting glimpse into that mindset.
I also love the way she's not like the FBI's biggest, not that she's not the biggest fan, but she's not afraid to call them out on their weak areas of weakness and like
lazy.
Yeah, that's what she called them.
Well, which I think our host Sarah really kind of emphasized that. So let's talk about Sarah for a second. What's your vibe on Sarah as our host?
Jury's out right now. I think, unshockingly, there's a lot of like sitting back, particularly in the first part of it. It's really just allowing the narration to happen. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of episode 1 sitting back and kind of allowing a lot of the primary sources to speak for themselves, which I always love because we can kind of infer a bit more than being told what's happening or what to feel, or like someone's opinion, the host's opinion of something. I don't know. I think it started out weak. It started out more 24 hours in crime. We're like, I don't know, CSI. Like it started out very like cheesy or something. I didn't love it. But I think as it went on, as more of the people who were involved in the story, like we heard from them, whether it was at the time accounts or now, like more recent accounts, I feel like it got a lot stronger. But that's not what you asked me. You asked me about Sarah. I thought she was fine. Not my favorite first episode from a host. Not my least favorite. I didn't feel like she was smarmy or snarky or undermining, but yeah.
Okay.
Why? Your face is doing things.
No, I feel like I think we're on the same page. The words I wrote down were dry, factual, measured. I think it's the type of style that I'm curious to see where it goes. If she maintains that, because if she does, and which also kind of fits her being like a former cop. Like she's not overly dramatic. She's not Keith Morrison. She's not.
I love that man.
Sure, we all do. National treasure. But I think it's the type of style that will serve this story well. Because she's doing a lot of the work here. Like she's not just a person reading, like narrating. Like she's the one actually like trying to conduct an investigation. There's a moment where she says, the cops, the Alabama cop can't investigate. I forget what she's talking about, but the Kansas cop
can't go over.
Over state
over
lines.
the border or over. Yeah. Well, state
she's
lines.
Like, but I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of her, I think, asserting her authority. And she doesn't actually. It's funny because
her flex. Is she like, I can do it and I will. Da, da, da.
It is a flex, which she drops near the end of the episode. She's kind of like, yeah, I'm a former cop and investigator, and this is what I do. But she doesn't lead with that. That's in like the last 5 minutes of this episode, which I kind of like. Let us know before you go why we should listen to you and why we should care.
Yeah, like it gives her some weight. Gives her some credibility. That's the word I'm looking for. It gives her like a lot of credibility to be like, I'm not just telling you a story. Like I'm digging into this, and I'm not digging into it in any sort of fanciful way. Like I'm an investigator and I'm going to get this shit done. Do you think they're going to solve it?
Well, I don't know. But how does she do that? She showed first and then she told, which I thought was, we've criticized other stories for not doing.
Show, don't tell.
Do you think they're going to, do you think they're going to solve it?
I feel like this is such a recent podcast. I feel like I would have heard if they had solved it. I feel like she will get to the bottom of it, but I don't know that like justice system wise. I don't know if legally it will be resolved.
How will you, knowing what you know now, how will you feel if we get to the end of this and it's completely unresolved?
Well, I don't know. I think that depends on the journey that we're brought on. Because in episode 1, we're given the person who's not even the person. Like this episode could have been 3 episodes long. Another podcast would have made this such a big focal point. We've another 7 episodes to go. I hope they don't drag it out. Presume there's more to the story to tell.
Sure.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think they're going to go back to Justin. The husband. They're going to go back to the friend Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck. I don't know. I'm dying to listen. I was raging that we weren't doing this till tonight because I wanted to listen to more.
I will say, just to echo one of your points, this first episode could have been 3 episodes. Another podcast certainly would have spread the story of the murder, the investigation where they find Chapman, and then the twist that he's actually Jeremy Jones. That all could have been spread out. So the fact that it's that dense in this first episode, I think bodes really well.
Hopefully it's not just packing the first episode full to get people in. I don't know. I hope I have high hopes for it.
All right, let's find out. Before we go, if you just absolutely love this discussion or absolutely hate the discussion or can't quite figure out how you feel about it, let us know. Leave a comment on Spotify. Leave us a rating on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. And then go tell a friend how you feel about us and why they should listen, and so that you have a friend who you can talk to about this conversation.
Talk to your friend about this podcast you listen to where 2 friends talk about this crime. So then you and your friend can talk about the crime that we spoke about, that we had listened to. It's like a whole circle.
Yes, the circle is complete. Next time, did Jeremy Jones kill Jennifer Judd?
If not, who did? And will there be justice for Jennifer and her family?
We'll recap all of Who Killed Jennifer Judd.
That's on the next So Much Crime.
So Little Time.
So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of MimeGov Media. The executive producer is Paxton Calariso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show in your podcast app. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening. So Little Time.
So many J's. Jeremy Jones, Jennifer Judd, and Justin?
And John Paul Chapman?
It's too many J's.